Greetings to you, dear ones. As you know, this part of the motherboard is the same as the ports of the motherboard, which are different types of USB ports. We can see the connection of the keyboard, LAN card, sound cards, and these issues that the main ports are the mother ports, all these ports and ports. They are connected to the chip, especially the southern chip, and are managed through I/O. Each of these ports has its own driver. For example, the meaning is that it's not like a port like USB is directly connected to the AI or directly to the chip. If you pay attention, I'm going a little higher. In this part of the motherboard, we can see various ICs that are placed behind these ports. Well, you can see here, especially related to LAN and USB. Each of these ICs are actually their own port drivers. For example, here you can find these ICs that it is related to import, and the import driver is from USB, and this ICM that is placed here is related to import. And the ports related to the LAN are again under this, and here under the heatsink, which you can see. And memory is usually placed next to them. So what is the function of these drivers and these ICs? Is the name of the driver correct? So what does he do? It applies the voltage related to the port, and in addition, it connects these ports to the main ICs such as I/O and chipsets. In fact, the data is handled by those drivers first, and then it reaches the main chips. What did I exchange this for? This is because, for example, if you ever see that a USB card does not work, it is not because of the I/O or chip. The main parts of Dusher are damaged. You must pay attention to this issue. First of all, the driver should be repaired like this IC that I showed. There have been many times in our repairs when, for example, the USB port, for example, says that this port is not working and that it is broken. We have solved the problem with the driver tab. We dock this driver and the problem is solved. Fortunately, these driver parts are not very expensive, and you can even use paper motherboards that have other problems, but the port is healthy. We do this a lot ourselves, and you can even change it. However, the issue that exists is that these drivers are not very testable. And I mean that it is not the case that we should come and test with a multimeter or a special tool to see if this IC driver is damaged or vary. There is no such possibility for us. So the only way we can determine whether the problem is with that driver or if it is a bigger and newer problem is to just come and change that driver. Of course, they are on the same side and there is a way, that is, if I am just giving an example, see that this USB port, for example, well, there is no voltage. That means it should come with a voltmeter. Well, there are two negative voltages and positive. Then use US to measure them. If you see that there is no voltage, this driver is 100% damaged. And the only test you can have on the motherboard, that is, on the driver part of a port, is this, which means we take the maximum output voltage. If there is no voltage, that means the driver is broken, but if there is voltage, it will be approximately 10 to 20%. Come to the conclusion that maybe the driver is healthy and the problem is more serious. But if there is no voltage, then you have to change the driver yourself. But again, you can't rely on it, and we have tested the voltage many times. For example, we saw a USB port whose voltage is stable. But in order to add more to the experience, we changed the driver. When we changed the driver, we saw that the problem was solved. So it was giving the voltage, but it still had a problem. I said this because simply giving the voltage is not the proof that the driver is healthy, and the only way is to tweak it. So all the ports have their own drivers, and you must pay attention to this issue.